doing is I'll start introducing Tad's main theme, which is niching. And then if he turns up, he can take over and do a better job than me.
He is now here, actually. So looks like he's in the house.
Hello.
Okay, Tad, high five, you're in.
Hi, Tad.
Thank you, everyone. Sorry for the confusion. I had just a time zone glitch. I thought I was starting later, but good to be here.
Good, nice to have you. I'm going to pass over to Sarah, who's going to intro you, and I'll be here in the background if you need anything, Tad. So good to see you.
Good to see you too, dude.
Yeah, so I'm really pleased to be introducing Tad today. This feels like I struck gold. So Tad is a marketing coach and the founder of Marketing for Hippies. I'm going to put the URL in the chat. He has described himself as a hippie who developed a knack for marketing and then learned how to be a hippie again. He is the founder of Marketing for Hippies and is committed to helping people who are allergic to marketing find ways to market that feel wonderful. So speaking personally, this has been huge for me because I had such aversion. So finding ways that it can feel good for me and for people I'm trying to reach is amazing. He defines hippies as entrepreneurs with a sustainability, holistic health, or permacultural slant to it. Although he tried not to, he has a knack for marketing and can now develop oxymoronic niches that capture our attention with interest. He breaks down what it means to have an effective niche, explores the it factor of marketing, and borrows from the slow food movement to drop it into slow marketing principles. He's been touring these marketing workshops around Canada for almost a decade, bringing these new, refreshing, unorthodox ideas to conscious entrepreneurs and green businesses that help them grow their businesses and organizations without selling their souls. So I think for a lot of us who are interested in personal growth and helping people, this is really critical. We want to reach people and we want to help them. How do you do that without getting into the kind of more described as ick factor, that kind of unpleasant somatic sense of marketing that doesn't feel ethical? So the title of this talk is going to be Point of View Marketing, a pressure-free approach on how to market your business in a way that feels good to all involved and that works. So thank you so much, Tad, for being here. It's really appreciated, and I'm really looking forward to the session. I'll pass over to you.
Hey, well, thank you. Can you hear me all right? Is the volume good? Good, okay. Well, first of all, Sarah, thank you for that intro. That's you worked on that, and I'm grateful. You know, one of the things, just should you ever be hosting somebody and interviewing them, the rookie move that people do is they say, well, I'll let you introduce yourself. Why don't you do that? And it's, I think, properly the job of the host to introduce the guests. You know, it's the job of, because who wants to talk about themselves? We've done it a lot. And our own alleged expertise on ourselves is dramatically overstated. And it's much more interesting to hear what other people might have to say about you. And the host is probably in a better position to frame the introduction for their guests and to establish the relevance in a way that you couldn't if you did it yourself. It's one of the ways that you show your care for the guest is in the labor you put in setting the table for their arrival. And so thank you. You put in time for that, and I'm grateful for it. And of course, you know, everything I just said is not separate from marketing. Maybe we'll get there, but there's a similar kind of host-guest relationship between you and your own clients. When your clients show up to your website, so often websites are sort of, well, yeah, welcome in. Just look around. You'll probably find something relevant somewhere. I can't remember where I put stuff, but you know. And what is the homepage on most websites? It's all about them as the host, you know, and how great they are. But the homepage of your website should be about them. It should be about your ideal client. It should be something that they read and say, oh, I'm in the right place. it should read as beautifully as Sarah's introduction did to me, you know, that the people you're greeting and welcoming should see themselves. And this is everything from your business name to the name of your workshops, to the opening words of a talk, to the headline of a sales letter. It should all have that kind of generosity, hospitality, you know, empathy in it, that people would see themselves in it, and maybe even see themselves in it more accurately than they've been able to see themselves, which is not an uncommon thing. You know, a headline that says, "Hey, are you struggling with this in this way?" Wow, I've never said it like that, but that's exactly what it's like. You give a metaphor for how they're experiencing it. I remember talking with a client, and we were trying to figure out a metaphor that might describe how her clients felt in the situations they were in. And we were kind of riffing back and forth. You know, are they at the end of their rope? Does it feel like they're standing on the edge of a cliff? And then I looked at her and I said, is it like they feel like they're being buried alive? And she just, yes, you know, that was it. And so sometimes you can articulate people's experience so well that they finally feel seen. And then, of course, if you can help them understand, not just feel seen, but help them understand why they're struggling. Well, this is a whole other level. You know, helping them feel seen, that's the, you're sitting around the dinner table and you introduce everyone, you know, as a proper host might. But then you feed them food too. You know, and that's the thing that sustains them. So this whole point of view marketing piece, I want to maybe come into it, just set the table a bit more. Sarah was talking about this icky feeling in the body. So the whole premise of my work is that marketing can feel good, and that marketing really needs to feel good. And you really can trust your body on marketing. Marketing should feel good in your body. You shouldn't feel uncomfortable about it. If you feel uncomfortable about it, it probably means you're doing it wrong. That's important to say. It should actually relax you when you think about doing marketing. I remember talking with a rabbi, and he said, my mom had a rabbi life coach. We're not Jewish, but it's, you know, it's the 2000s, and so this is the world now. And he mentioned he was really struggling with marketing. She said, well, you know, my son has this business, and he's actually pretty good at it. And so we did this. I just donated a free call to him because he was helping my mom. And he said, well, I feel very awkward marketing. I speak at synagogues, and when I speak, you know, of course I have these home study programs, and I should promote them, but I feel so strange. I'm a rabbi and at a synagogue. I shouldn't be promoting it. It feels like it would be weird or strange. And I said, you're right. I think that would be weird or strange to have the rabbi suddenly go into an infomercial for their stuff. I said, but if the person hosting you did it, it's different. You know, it was like, oh, thank you, Rabbi Michael, for coming to our synagogue today and sharing your good words. If you like what Rabbi Michael had to say, like most of the kids, he's got the website, rabbimichael.com, whatever. Yeah, okay, so you check it. He's got some home studies, and you can learn from him on the internet. It's amazing. Go check it. So somebody else could say the exact same thing. And this just ties into another point is you're not, maybe, I'll just put this out as a possibility. Maybe you're supposed to be terrible at marketing yourself. So we're starting to move our way into point of view, because what you're hearing this whole time is me sharing my point of view about marketing. I think maybe you're not supposed to be good at it. I think maybe we're supposed to be terrible at marketing ourselves. But isn't this interesting? You probably can all relate to this. Marketing yourself feels so awkward. It feels so strange to do it, to be promoting yourself. But marketing other people is your superpower. You know, for most of the people on this call, you have a local restaurant nearby you that is in business because of you. You know, you've sent them so much business. We all have colleagues like this where you keep referring them business, and you're so good. Why? Because that's normal, to talk up your friends and to. So I've been expressing my point of view, but what is point of view? Point of view is basically, okay, there's three things people need when they're suffering. First is empathy, the second is context, and the third is guidance. Empathy, context, guidance. Yeah, empathy just being, oh, that sounds painful. Context, meaning here's why you're struggling. and then guidance, the advice, and here's the particular package or the offer. I could say that another way, different words for the same three things. You've got to be able to articulate their problem, and then you share, here's my premise about that, and then here's my promise, here's the offer. So problem, premise, promise. And if you can establish the problem, this is what builds the relevance. This is what has them even pay attention. And this comes before point of view marketing, because until you've established relevance, they don't care about your point of view, and why would they? But then the next step is to establish credibility. And in my opinion, most of credibility and trust and safety in the marketing comes from you expressing your point of view, because it's very painful to have a problem, of course, but it's bearable. The thing that makes it unbearable is that people don't know why they're struggling. They don't know why they suffer as they do. And that's just awful to not know why. And we've all been there. And you had something painful. This could be health, could be money troubles, could be relationship troubles, could be just a deep sense of unease or lack of peace in your life. And no matter what you do, you can't get on the other side of it. You've tried so hard, and you just start to feel like a failure, and you give up at a certain point, as you probably should, because why throw good money after bad? You just sort of, well, this is just how it's going to be. And a lot of why we give up is because, we just can't solve it, because we don't know what the real cause of the issue is. And if you don't have a good diagnosis, how can you have a good prescription? So this is a lot of the point of view is giving the underlying diagnosis of, here's my sense of what's actually going on. That's the primary thing. And so here's a quick little exercise you can do. So first of all, this really does hinge on having some sense of who you're trying to reach. And if you're trying to reach everybody, it's difficult, because you can't even get to step one, which is relevance. Can't even get to step one, which is articulating the problem. But let's imagine you already have that. And if you don't, I would invite you to just think about, well, because no doubt you've heard about this niching thing before. And so you might even just take a leap and say, well, just for the next half hour, this will be the issue I'm focused on. You could just pick one. You could pick it, fairly randomly out of the hat, but something maybe you have some connection, something you've been thinking about for a while, gestating on. Okay. So you might think about that issue. So for me, it would be people, all these hippie entrepreneurs have to market, but they feel terrible about it. They just don't want to do it. They know it's necessary, but it feels so awful. That's the problem. Yeah, that's what I would call Island A. If you can imagine, your ideal client is on an island called Island A, and that's where they have the symptoms, the troubles, the pain. They want to be on Island B. Well, this is where there's a result that they're craving. So your business is like a boat that could take them from one island to the other. So let's just imagine you've got some semblance of that. Well, then here's the next question. And this is one of my favorite questions to be asking people. And so maybe I'll just give you a minute to write it down and see what answer comes out, because it won't take long. But imagine this. We're at the pub and you're 3 pints in. Or if you don't drink, then you're exhausted. You haven't slept in a few days. Either way, you're not at your most eloquent. You're probably at a place where you're a little bit more likely to just say the thing. It's not going to be fancy words. You're just going to blurt things out. And I sit with you and I say, so who do you help? And you tell me, so I help these kind of people who are struggling with this kind of problem, or they want to get, this kind of result. And I say, well, what's your hot take on it? What's your, why do people struggle so much? Now, if you were in that sort of ragged state, you might just blurt something out. 3 pints in, you might say, it's just that and that. And it would come out, and it would be a very honest thing that you would say. So what I want to do is give you all a minute just to write down what would you say if I were to sit with you and we were talking about this issue that people are struggling with. I say, well, what is it really about? Why are they struggling so much? Why is it so hard? What's the deal? What makes it so difficult? Why can't they solve it on their own? And you would just say, in a sentence or two, oh, it's because this. there's a client I have, and she specializes in helping people, particularly women, who overgive as a chronic pattern. And when I asked her, so what do you think this is really about? She would say it's the people are so disconnected from themselves. The solution to overgiving is actually self-connection. It's not trying to set better boundaries and, blame other people. It's not going to an assertiveness training. It's learning how to more deeply connect with yourself. There's another client in my mentorship program who works around weight loss, a woman, Suzanne Kohlberg from Australia. And as we were talking, and I said, well, yeah, what do you think why do people struggle so much with weight loss? What's the thing? And the thing that came out that to me was so compelling, she said, it's because it connected to this last one, she said, because they overgive. And at first it made no sense. I said, how does overgiving connect with overweight or underweight or whatever? And she said, because, and this was her story, and she's seen this in almost all of her clients. She says, we make the plans to self-care, to meditate, to exercise, to go shopping for healthy food, to make ourselves some healthy food, to journal, whatever it is that we know is going to nourish us. But then somebody needs help. And so all of our self-care once again gets put aside, And I just thought, wow, that's really interesting. That's a very refreshing take. If somebody were to say, Tad, why do you think so many people struggle with marketing feeling so bad? I'd say it's because we're taught that we need to go for the goal of getting the sale instead of going for the truth of, is it a fit or not? I can speak for a whole day on that topic. And I have a day-long workshop, and that's what I do in that day-long workshop, is just expand on that idea that marketing feels bad because we're trying to go for the sale. So let's go for the truth of, is it a fit or not instead. So I'd invite everyone to just maybe type in the chat, and let's just see what people have. Why are your people struggling so much? What's your take on it? And this is when we say point of view. Point of view is, what's your take? What's your philosophy, your cosmology, your worldview, your understanding of it, your diagnosis, your perspective? Yeah. This is one of the most compelling things there is in marketing. Because if I were to sit here and say, well, let's just say I were to say, look, everyone, we're talking about marketing. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to unmute everyone one by one, and you're all going to have 30 seconds to convince us to work with you. Give us your best pitch on why working with you would be worth it. Now you can immediately feel the discomfort. Yeah, we're all muted and I can hear the discomfort. Nobody wants to do this. Isn't that weird? It's like, I'm telling you, hey, here's a chance to give a commercial. And yes, something about the framing of that, convincing other people to work. Well, there are some people who have no shame about these things, and they're called psychopaths. Most of us feel a little awkward about it. So, but if I were to say, as I just said now, well, type in your point of view and perspective, and I were to say that out loud, most people would feel fine. And in fact, we'd have a hard time shutting you up. I'd say 30 seconds, and there's no way. Because you have so many thoughts about this. And if I said, we're going to unmute you or we're going to randomly pick 3 people, and you each get 1 minute to pitch yourself, that would feel awkward for the person pitching, but it would also feel terrible for us receiving. Why? Because no one wants to sit through a commercial. But if I were to say, okay, yeah, you've got Sarah, we know your target market is this, you're working on, so what's your take on it? That would be, Sarah would probably feel much better sharing that, and we would all feel better listening to it. Yeah, so I'm just want to look at some of these, and I invite you to look at some of these as well. Because they're not connected to themselves. Oh, interesting, you wrote that right before I said it. Nice. They don't trust themselves to survive what's happening. They can't see what's hiding in plain sight. It's self-recognition, self-communication issue. They're unhappy with who they are. They don't know their strengths or good qualities. They've forgotten or had barriers to knowing them. Yeah, they're scared of letting go where they feel their security is. Right. Oh my God, this is where I get secure, but to grow or to change, to go to the next, I have to let go of that. And that's, yeah. They're afraid to go to the wild places inside and out. That limits the vital life they could be bringing. If you live too much in our minds, we lose awareness that our minds lie to us. Yes, they do. Yeah, this is wonderful. So good. So everything that is there could be the basis of a talk. And so consider this in terms of point of view, and sort of making the case for why point of view matters, but also how it shows up at a technical level. Is, if any of you have had the misfortune to go to some kind of intro workshops where it turns into a big pitch fest, yeah, it's not that great. You go looking for help, of course, and then the first third of it is kind of overwrought empathy. Isn't it hard? Life is hard, and your life is hard. I remember how hard my life used to be. I was struggling like you, and let me tell you the whole story about how terrible it was. And let me stick the knife in and twist it around just to remind us how painful it is. And then but now my life is great. Don't you want your life to be great? You want your life to be great. I remember I went to one talk. It's like, yeah, before that it was terrible, and after I got a great wife, a great house, a great car, and I was like, wow, that's, almost in those words. So, and then the next third is the content, but it's usually less content than promised. Why? Because the real content is in the coaching program, after which you have to pay a lot of money for. And then the last third is the pitch. So I just want to submit that there's a whole different structure that not only will feel better to everyone, but that works better, is more effective long term. And it would be this. I don't know if I'll give percentages, but maybe like the first 5% is that empathy piece. But you don't need to do a lot. Why? Because it should be in the title of the workshop. They should probably know based on the title if they're in the right place. You shouldn't have to belabor the thing. And nobody wants you to belabor it. If you want to tell your story, it's great. Sometimes it does help. It's a nice way in, and it's relevant. But we don't need to necessarily. The last 5%, well, that's the pitch. So then what's 90% of it? The content. But what do I mean by content? I mean your point of view. 90% of it is you sharing, look, you've come to me. I don't know if we'll ever get to work together. So I just have to leave it all on the table right now. I have to put it all here. If you were to come to me and ask me for help, which I guess you're doing because you're here tonight, here's my take on the situation. Let me do everything I can to give you the context that you need. The context including what are the main elements that you need to pay attention to? What are the elements, the core principles, and what are the steps? But you're giving them an outline. You're giving them the 30,000 foot view of whatever. Turn this off. So what happens is, let's say you do that whole sharing of point of view. And when people come in, they're sitting kind of upright. They're not leaning in too much. They're not leaning out too much. They're just kind of, well, let's see. Now, maybe they lean in a bit because somebody told them good things about you. Or maybe they're leaning out a bit because somebody dragged them there. But most of the time, if people come to something, they're neutral-ish to leaning in a bit. But let's say by the time you finish, they're leaning in fully. They're, oh my God, that point of view made more sense than anything I've ever heard. And you can probably think of and remember presentations you've been to that were like that. You went out in open-minded, interested, and by the end of it, you thought, oh my God, that makes so much sense. Or you read a book like this, and you said, and I thought this for years, but they said it so lucidly. Oh, it's so liberating. Suddenly you're freed. Maybe the embodiment work was that for a lot of you. Somebody said something that finally made sense of your world. Like that map is a good map. That's accurate. So let's say you're leaning in. And you just think, oh my God, I've never heard something that lucid. That's incredible. That makes so much sense of why I'm struggling. And therefore, what I would need to do to be free. And let's say, after that, they do the pitch. But it's the worst pitch you've ever seen. It's super awkward. And just so, thanks for coming, everyone. And hope you got something useful out of it. If you want to work with me, you can go to, but why would you? It's YouTube. You just go to YouTube. Everyone, it's free. Why would you pay somebody? Okay, thanks for coming. Bye. It's that bad. They don't even get to the pitch. I'm telling you this, if let's say you went in and you just been diagnosed with some disease that's pretty serious, but through the presentation, you see them saying, well, look, here's what they say this disease is, but here's where that's inconsistent and that doesn't make sense. And here's what the new science is showing is actually this disease is caused by this over here, a totally different thing. And in fact, we've worked with clients, and here's a bunch of case studies of the clients we've worked with using this protocol instead of the typical protocol that's based on that understanding. And these clients all got better, or a lot, the chances of survival or recovery were much better. And here's this, and here's why it works, and here's the protocol we use. I'm telling you, if that was you and you'd sat through that presentation and then they do this terrible pitch, you would walk up to them after and you would say, I'm sorry, do you work with people? Are you accepting patients? Because we're going to work on your self-esteem. That's the thing. That was a terrible pitch. But do you work with people? That would not get in the way. It would be a speed bump. But fundamentally, most people would still, if the point of view was compelling enough, would fight through your awkwardness and your dissembling, rambling pitch. But let's say they're leaning out. At the end, they think, I've never heard a bigger pile of horse shit in my life. And then they do the best pitch you have ever seen. It's so good. The mayor of Pitchtown shows up, gives them an honorary degree, master's in pitchology, and it goes viral in Pitchtown. And it's just standing ovations and people weeping at how good the pitch was. And you've never seen something so, the grandmaster of pitching shows up and takes off their crown and says, I am not worthy. You are the new king of pitching. Like, it's that good. It doesn't matter. You see what I'm saying? If you're leaning out, I don't care how well they price it and what kind of NLP they use to, or whatever. It's so useless. So what's the main thing? It's the point of view. And here's what I love about this kind of point of view marketing approach is point of view marketing is saying, regular marketing, so much of it seems to me to be saying, trust me. Hey, trust me. Oh, that's a lot of money. Yeah. Hey, I can help you. Trust me. Well, can you tell me more about what the work is? Well, no, that content's really for the paying people. So just trust me. Versus with point of view marketing, you're saying, hey, I trust you. Here's how I see it. You tell me if you want to work or not. But this is my whole view. I trust you. I trust you to make a good decision for you. That's it. And that's a much more effective approach. So it's a ennobling of the people listening, I think. And you might think, but if I give it all away, why would they hire me? No. Because you give it all away. That's why they hire you. 10% of people are DIYers. They'll just do it yourself. They'll just go off and great. But most people, if you really break it down, here's what's involved. Most people at a certain point hit tilt and kind of get overwhelmed and think, that makes sense, but I need help with that. I don't want to try to do that all myself. They'd be grateful for the hand-holding. They'd be grateful for the guidance and the support in an approach that makes sense to them. The emotional side of the marketing is just handled in the relevance. It's there. It's kind of built in with your ideal client. It just hurts enough. They want it bad enough. The emotional side, you really don't need to belabor it. But there is that logical side of, okay, I hurt, but what do I do? Well, I would suggest you do this. Yeah, it's and here's why. And here's why I wouldn't suggest the other approaches. So that's the overview. There's a lot to say about point of view marketing, but Sarah, I don't know if we should open up to questions, or if you have questions and you want to guide us in the last little bit.
Sure. So I guess I'll start by just asking anyone, inviting people, if you'd like to ask Tad a question. It's a great opportunity to do so. Just drop that in the chat, and we'll pick out some of them depending on how many we get. We'll get through as many as we can. To start off with, as I was listening, Tad, so I'm going to ask this question a bit on the fly. it really freed up how I was able to think about my marketing, actually, in terms of just saying, like, this is how I feel about things. And it struck me that it was really important to be bold about what I think about things, where my habit can be to be a bit more kind of people pleasing. So I don't know if there's anything you could speak on about that.
Yeah. So maybe I might say it a little different, but it's probably the same thing. Is what point of view marketing asks you to do is to be very candid, to be very honest. Why? Because you're opinionated. I'm just telling you, in case nobody has told you this recently in your life, you're super opinionated. You think, no, I'm real open-minded. Sure, great. But no, on your work that you do on helping people with a particular problem you solve, and the longer you do it, the more opinionated you will get. No, there is a better way to do this. I mean, you talk to people who make, there's a coffee shop in Edmonton. And if you go there, it's called Credo. And if you go there and you try to have them Starbucks your coffee and do all the little Starbucks twists, they just say, no, we make our coffee the way we make it. We think you'll like it. And people, what? Some people get offended and leave, but they're just opinionated about it. So it's just that it's not a tactic as in, okay, pick a more controversial, outrageous statement to say. It's just that you probably already have it. So why not tell the truth? Which, of course, as Sarah's saying, is a little nerve-wracking, because what if people don't like it? People aren't going to like it. Ta-da! Problem solved. I wrote a blog post years ago called Get Rejected Faster. Because here's the thing. I would just submit, when you're talking to a particular person or a room full of people, with every person there, it's really either a fit or not. You can't make it a fit if it's not. You can't change that fundamentally. It just is a fit or it isn't. May I direct you all back to your dating lives. It's just a fit or it isn't. So then what's the purpose of marketing in a lot of ways is cutting to the chase of that. And one of the major places you'll find if it's a fit or not. Now, the first place you'll find is a fit or not is the kind of who you're trying to work with. I work with these kind of people. I'm not that kind of person. We're probably not a fit. Not guaranteed, but that's an initial, fairly substantial filter. Second one is the point of view. Because let's say you are a fundamentalist Christian, and that's real important to you. And somebody says, oh, yeah, you're dealing with diabetes or whatever, you should go to this naturopath. But the naturopath is a hardcore pagan. And you walk in and there's the pentagram on the wall with a antlered skull there. And they ask you for a blood offering to the goddess Hecate before you begin. This is not a fit. I don't care how good they are. They're going to back away. Or you're a hardcore vegan, but they're paleo. Sometimes it's just, yeah, they're real skilled, but yeah. So, and yes, this takes courage to do this. You do have to be brave because you will lose people. Some people will be offended. Some people will not like it. But if you can imagine like a bell curve, yeah. And in most businesses, so I talk about this in my day-long workshop, there's 3 types of clients, basically, 3 types of potential people you might work with. And each of them requires a slightly different approach, and pretty much everyone you meet, you could easily fit into one of these 3 categories. I'm gonna share it with you. You're all gonna be disappointed, but then I try to impress you with it. Okay, so basically, yes, maybe, and no. Those are the 3 types. Everyone you meet is either gonna be a yes right away. They're kind of leaning, oh my God, that's amazing. I had a dream. I was gonna talk to somebody like you today. Sign me up. It's not often, but you've probably met people like that. And you've probably been that person. You came across somebody's work and you were just, I'm in. You don't need to convince me. Put away the sales letter. I don't need to read it. I'm in. And then there are the no's. And the no's are, as you talked about, they say, what do you do? So, I do this embodiment work where it's really getting people in touch with their body. And they're just saying, they're like, hey, I'm out of punch. I'll be right back at the party. And they never come back. So they just write you off. You're a quack, you're a hippie, whatever, they blow you off. And then there are the maybes, and now that's most of them. So this is back to the bell curve. Most of them are the maybe. There's a huge mountain of maybes and very few yeses or nos. But why is it that most people are maybes? What is that about? What it's saying is you're probably trying to appeal to everybody. So everybody's showing up. Another way to say that is you're desperately afraid of rejection. You don't want any of the no's. And so out of the fear of no's, again, you try to cater to everybody. So it's fundamentally a lack of vulnerability that creates this mountain of maybes. And this is why this matters, because the maybes don't buy. Maybes do not spend money. And they usually turn into no's at the end of the day. That's the direction they go. Why? Because they find somebody else who can help them, and then they stop shopping. They stop looking around. So the way we flip it in a way where instead of it being this bell curve like this, it becomes like a valley where there's now, it's more polarized. But there's a lot of people who are a hard yes. There's more people that are hard no. And that's fine. It's okay. Again, this isn't a tactic. It's not like we're going for the polarizing. But it's just what happens. If you start being honest and candid about how you see things, it will be much more attractive to the people you want, and it will repel the people who just actually aren't a fit, who wouldn't be a fit anyways if they showed up. You're just cutting to the chase faster. Thank you. Funny, that's good. Let's see, any questions? Haven't you seen Mark? Sounds like you missed his sessions. Yeah, I did. Maybe people don't want to risk making the wrong decision. Well, nobody wants to risk making a wrong decision. There's something special about the maybes. It's just that the people who are maybe don't have enough information to make that decision. And why? Because we're holding all of our cards, close to our chest. That's why. They don't have the info they need to make a decision for them of whether or not this is a fit. So to me, that's so much of the marketing is just giving them the info they need to make the choice, which is important because they will make the choice. It's them. We can't decide for them. And this is one of my main beefs with a lot of the sales and marketing stuff, particularly the sales stuff that I came across. And sadly, a lot of it's still out there is, well, you have to make the decision for them, because that would empower them. Because you can't, that you either sell them on the possibility of what you're doing or they sell you on their limitations and all that, it's immensely disrespectful to people, I think. I just think it's more respectful to say, you're dealing with this issue. This is my opinion about it. And take it or leave it. And then, of course, sure, also do a good pitch. I'm not arguing for doing a terrible pitch. Yeah, think through your offer, right? Think through the pricing. Think about how you can reduce the risk on them taking that first step. All of that too. I'm just saying that's 5% of it. If you ever been to a festival or these outdoor festivals, there's these little camping chairs people bring and sit on. And those camping chairs they're not so strong. You try to sit an elephant on one of those and it just crushes it. And so that's all the pitch is. The pitch is this rinky-dinky little camping chair. You don't want to put too much weight on it. In fact, do I have here, I got a book here. Think about it like this. So this front cover, that's the problem. This is the relevance piece. It's important, but that's what it gets them to open the book. But it's not that big. It doesn't take up that much real estate. Now the back cover, that's the pitch. That's the value. That's the guidance. That's here's what's next. So what's in the middle? The book that they paid for. It's that. You see the difference in thickness. So most of it is here. And this is, I'd say I've been using Intro Workshop a lot, but the same for a sales letter. If you do a sales letter, what should most of the sales letter be? Your point of view. Not your story and how hard you struggled in your life for pages and pages. Those sure have that in there too. But mostly what they want to know is, well, what's your opinion? How do I stop hurting? They want to hear that. those kind of sales letters that are saturated in point of view, you know, this is very compelling to read. People just keep, you know, of course, if you weave that with case studies and stories, so the point of view doesn't just appear abstractly, but actually appears in an incarnated form, then it's going to be even more compelling. But these are the kind of sales that people forward to other people. You have to read this. I learned something in here. You know, it's marketing is really fundamentally two things. It's education, it's relationship building. So, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to go back to this chat here. Yes, I often ask something along the lines of, what do you what do you need in order to be able to decide? And what's very important is, as long as we're coming from the agenda to get to the truth of if it's a fit, people feel that. This goes back to the somatic thing. People can feel this in their bodies. You know, if you see a duck swimming in the water, it's moving, but you can't see how it's moving. Well, the feet under the water are doing this. And this is why marketing feels so bad, is you can feel under the water, under the surface. People are trying to maneuver you. And but you can't see anything. You can't point to it. It's a very unsettling experience of, you try to explain it to a friend. Well, what did they say? What did they do? Well, that sounds okay. No, but it felt weird. Again, I will direct you back to your dating life on this one. You know, how many times you could feel yourself being maneuvered by somebody, even though there's nothing to point to. So if our agenda is to get the sale, and we say, well, what information would you need to decide? It feels different. It'll just show up differently. But if it's really like, I just want to get to the truth, if it's a fit, yeah, what else would you need to know? And they say, well, yeah, in the end they say, oh, it's not a fit. You said, great, that's totally fine. No problem. And you bless and release. You know, the people who are a yes, you just make it easy for them to buy. Here's the next step. People who are no, you bless and release. That's, I think, the only sane approach to that. And the people who are maybes, those are just evidence that you're probably not as clear as you could be about your point of view and your perspective, or the niche possibly. Maybes don't want to take ownership for their decision. I would disagree with that. No, I would push back on that one. I would say that becomes the rationale for the manipulation. Well, they don't want to take ownership, so I will. Which then further robs people of the ownership. Well, these kids don't want to learn, so we have to bribe them with the gold stars and grades. But then you treat the kids in that way, and it further undercuts their own autonomy. It further undercuts their own innate curiosity and learning. This is my sense. This is my opinion about it. I don't know. I mean, some people maybe don't want to take ownership for their decisions. I don't know if that's special for the maybes, though. It may be a human thing. But even if they don't want to take ownership, well, to me, then that's not our business. It's not my business to, unless that's the work you do, is helping people take ownership, then there's a great coaching session to have. But okay, last question here. So I teach a somatic movement practice for pain relief. How do I niche it? I'm like marketing to everyone with chronic pain. Oof, that's probably a bigger question that we can get into. But it might be specializing in a particular who. You might focus on a very specific type of chronic pain, you know, in terms of where in the body. But it also might be a particular scene. Like, I help people with chronic pain in the Burning Man community. You can niche in this kind of way too, by a scene, yeah, like the vegan crowd, and they just adopt you because you're focused on in that way. Okay. Well, dang it, the time just flies by. So Sarah, I'll pass it back over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tad. That was great, and I wish we had more time, because like you said, there's days worth of content in many of the things that you mentioned. So you'll see Steve has dropped a link in to Marketing for Hippies. Tad also has a lot of online courses I would really recommend if you are struggling with niching. He's the man to go to. So there's a whole niching course that you can check out, and you can do that at home and in your own time. So it can really fit into your life quite easily. Tad is going to be back for the discussion panel at 8 o'clock. So really recommend dropping in for that, because there's just going to be so many good people, and I think it's going to be gold. So that's here at 8 p.m. And I will just end again by saying thanks so much, Tad, for your time. It is really, really appreciated. It's great to have you here. Yeah, and I'm going to put everybody into breakout rooms so you guys have a chance to just hang out and chat. And that is, yeah, that's it. I guess I'll also say thank you to Steve. So Tad, you congratulated me on the introduction, and really credit where it's due. Steve did a lot of preparation for that, so that I was able to come in and allow him to have a rest. So
yeah, thank you, Steve. Steve was the one who was wrangling me and sending the emails and dealing with my incredibly tardy replies and hurting the cat that is me. So yes, thank you, Steve.
Yeah, thanks, Tad. And as Sarah just said, and I couldn't ever take a rest from your stuff, so just lay on my bed next to this, still listening. I'll say that Tad's got a 30-day point of view course running at the moment. I've done a couple of Tad's courses. I did one, Marketing for Hippies 101, like a couple months ago. It goes for 5 weeks. He's doing another point of view one. And he's got fucking incredible stuff out there. Niching Spiral that Sarah mentioned, a whole heap of good books. Is there anything that we're missing, Tad? Because, I mean, it just goes on and on, right?
Well, yeah, there's that point of view course. The link is there. You can still join for the next until I guess Wednesday night, as long as you're willing to do the catch-up work. So if you're interested in this whole point of view thing, there's an ebook called Point of View Marketing I've got. And if you want to work with me one-on-one, there's an affordable way to do it. marketingforhippies.com/puttering, puttering sessions. And so, thank you.
And yeah, the great stuff about Tad's stuff as well is that like you get connected with a whole community of other people who are also doing some cool work. So it's highly recommended. Breathe.